picked off by Webster. Slick hands to Montagna. Wants to bring it wide to Ross. He's got a couple of metres on Dangerfield. Ross can get it and go. Runs to 51. Sets sail for home and puts it through.
Well, there's a special shortened edition of Unplugged this week. We're going to jump inside the camp now with a man who led St Kilda through most of last season in the absence of Jarryn Geary, also won the Best and Fairest last season, a multiple Best and Fairest winner now at the club. I speak of Seb Ross. And Seb, thanks for joining us in isolation this week.
No worries, guys. Happy to be on. It's good to see some fresh faces.
Now, in terms of the information, I mean, we know that, you know, during this podcast, things are sort of developing around in other states, Western Australia and South Australia. From your point of view, how frequently are you getting information about training resumptions and the possibility of playing? Is the club sort of briefing you as often as they can?
Yeah, that's right. It's sort of just information that trickles down from the AFL, and being in the leadership group, we meet once a week, and we're probably privy to the information a little earlier than the rest of the group. But the AFL PA, they've been doing weekly catch-ups as well. So we get information. We have a big team meeting on a Sunday night, which is all the boys involved, just sort of to kick off the week, and whatever information Rats or Leffers has sort of got for us on a return to training, we get it there. And then usually by Tuesday, when we've got our leadership meeting, something's changed up, or some more information's trickling down. And then the AFLPA are sort of setting up a meeting on those Tuesday afternoons and Wednesdays as well, when they get info. So we're getting kept in the loop, but what this whole sort of process has shined a light on is the uncertainty, everyone. So they make plans one week, but then they sort of have to change their plans to what sort of state government's decision-making, federal government's decision-making. So still plenty of uncertainty, and it's really hard to plan for anything at the moment, really.
Seb, as you know it right now, as we're recording, what is the latest?
I think, we're getting tested for COVID tomorrow. And then I think we are planning to resume at training sort of the middle of next week, and that's just in groups of 10s. But I think what the AFL has tried to do over this period is keep it all even, and so everyone it's a fair playing field. And we still know the WA boys and the SA boys, they've had to return and go into a quarantine period. So I don't know when they finish that quarantine period, but I assume we'll all be able to sort of resume training when those boys come out of that.
Now, I asked Tim Membry last week, how are you situated with if you have to go into a hub situation or be away from family for weeks at a time? How are you feeling about that situation if it happens?
Yeah, look, initially it sort of rocked me a little bit, just because I've got my wife and my 17-month-old daughter at home. So it's something that, and it still doesn't quite sit with me that well, particularly the scenario where we're going to be away for 20 of 21 weeks. That took me a while to let the dust settle on that one. And I think by the time I sort of was able to put more thought in it, they weren't happening anymore. So I was really happy once I found out that they weren't going ahead. But initially it caused quite a bit of angst for me and my family, particularly because it was one of those situations where it sort of just got dropped on us. So we went from having all this uncertainty in our lives already, with contracts and seasons and just what the immediate future looks like, and then that sort of just gets dropped on you from nowhere. So quite a bit of angst in my family, and particularly with we're not Melbournians, so our families don't live in Melbourne. So then the worry sets in about is my wife and daughter, are they going to be able to get the support they need if we're still under these really strict restrictions where you sort of basically got to stay at home other than go to the supermarket. So it caused quite a stir.
What's the ideal training load? So, for example, if you got back in the middle of next week, how long after that do you feel the players would be ready to play? I know you've been doing stuff to keep fit, and there's been programs, but I think some have suggested that a 3-week run in, some have suggested 5 is ideal, whether they split the middle and it's 4. If you start training, how long do you think the group needs to be ready to play?
I think 5's probably too long. I can't really speak for what the other footy clubs programs look like, but I feel like our program's pretty sort of well planned and put together in terms of being able to keep us match fit. The only thing we've really haven't been able to sort of expose our bodies to is that sort of contact side of training, so that the tackling and the pack marking and that sort of thing. So I think that's for us. I think we'll be ready to go whenever the AFL allows to, simply because of the program that they've put in place. And it hasn't been like an off season. We haven't treated it like an off season at all, where you basically become a superstar time trialist. We're still been able to keep that footy base up. So 3 weeks, I hope, is probably the mark that they come around, because I'd rather get into footy than later, because we've already done, what was it, about nearly 6 months of pre-season, and then another nearly 10-week block now. So ready for games.
What's your individual program look like over this period? Has it been really kind of centralized around specifically you, or has it been a more generic kind of maintenance program? And what does that look like for you on a daily or weekly basis?
I've sort of fallen into the more generic program. The majority of the playing list would, just because I don't have a history of sort of hot spots or bone stress injuries. So those guys, sort of, their training programs have been adapted for those guys, but it's been pretty similar to what we try and sort of emulate in season. So Tuesdays, Thursdays, so today, for instance, there's about 9 to 10K training session just in pairs, and that consists of a fair bit of footy skills and a few running drills, but more predominantly based around footy skills. And Tuesday is a bit more of a lighter day, as what it would be early on in the week in season. And then Saturday, they've sort of been up to the individual. You can you make up your own session. You can do go for a long bike ride. So for instance, if you're going to choose to do a running session or make one up, it has to be around sort of 10Ks. So that can be 10K trail run, or it can be, you can break it up however you want. Or I think the other option is sort of a 40K bike ride or something like that. But I've just been sticking to the running, and it's been a little bit different, but I don't know, I'm sort of sick of training in pairs, because it sort of reminds me of being in rehab and in doing the one-on-one skills with the sort of rehab guys, which is never fun, and it's actually harder work than training, because you don't get the opportunity to stand on the back of cone and rest.
Now, we heard last week that you are pairing off. Quite often the senior players going with one of the new players, or one of the first 2 years sort of players. Is there any the youngsters that you've been training with that have really impressed and thinking they could be the next one to jump up, or who's hitting it well?
Yeah, well, that's why I sort of alluded to earlier that I'd sort of want us to sort of get into games sooner rather than later, because I've got trust that the group's been doing the work, and that's one way we've sort of been able to or gain an understanding of where we're at, because we've been changing up our training partners basically every single training session, from senior guys to younger guys. So Jack Bytel and Ryan Burns are two of the younger fellas that sort of live around in my sort of area. And then I've got guys like Jack Sinclair, Jack Billings is around the corner, Jimmy Webster. So I've been training with those guys. But and Nick as recently as the weekend. And so there's a good demographic there, and you get to see where everyone's sort of fitness base is at and their training levels have been. And those guys have all been adhering to the program quite well. And but it's pretty hard to to have a standout when you're just doing one-on-one skills. But what I will say is that the guys have kept themselves in tip-top shape, and
ready to go.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
The final one from me in regards to that, in terms of the state league aspect that we've just heard, where a lot of players aren't going to be able to play state league footy around the country, which obviously eradicates a lot of the opportunity to play in the reserves and therefore push your name up. I guess that creates challenges for the group as well, because you might have your 22, and some people have speculated maybe increasing to 24 or 26 perhaps with larger interchanges. But I guess that's another challenge the club's going to have to work through, and everyone's going to have to work through, because you won't have players being able to put their hand up for selection based on game.
Oh yeah, it's a incredibly tough situation from the top management right down to the bottom, and we're all in situations that we've never been in before, and it's going to be something that we're going to have to be really conscious of managing the sort of the mental stress that's going to put on basically half the list who aren't playing. And I don't think anyone really has the answers on how to deal with it, but it's something we're just basically what we've been doing so far is just going to have to learn on the go, because there's the side of it that's just the reality of the situation. And even getting back to the hub talk before, you understand the needs and wants for the AFL to get the season up and running, and why it needs to happen. But then we've got this whole other side of the mental and physical well-being of everyone, and how you manage that as best you can with marrying it up with trying to get the season up and going. But it's definitely something that we're really conscious of, and even from the broader footy sense of only the soft cap gets shortened, and even some like the footy department, some guys won't be returning for this year that you're used to seeing around, and the commercial ops department as well. So doesn't just affect the players, it affects everyone in the AFL industry, just like it has the whole community. And basically the answer is it's just a really shit situation, and we're just going to have to wade our way through it together. And I think we've got a pretty close group. We're pretty well united from top to bottom. So I think we'll be able to get through it together. But yeah, something we're definitely mindful of.
Seb, you've been in the leadership group for a couple of years now, and obviously last year stood in for large parts of the season with Gears out. How do you think that environment and taking on that extra responsibility has impacted your ability to kind of lead the group through this period? Has it had an impact, do you think?
I think it definitely has. It hasn't been something that I've sat down and purposely thought about, but I think what I learned from that experience was how much you need support from others when you do have that role. When you do fall into that role, you think you don't think you've got to change who you are, but you feel like got to have more. Feel like you've got to be able to stretch yourself over the whole playing group a bit better. But there's 45 on a list, or 46, 47 these days, and that's just impossible. So you've got to have a great sort of team around you who you can delegate to and get out messages. Otherwise, what happens is you're sort of the main filter from the coaching staff to the playing group, and then all of a sudden you're getting asked questions from some other people in the footy department. All of a sudden your bucket's full and you're overloaded. So that's definitely something I learned from being in that role, and I suppose using that in this period is what we've tried to do as a leadership group. Is we've barely trained together. Most of us guys in the leadership group over this whole period, we've really been trying to spread ourselves out around the monks of the group so we can sort of check in and use our experience and help those guys get through this situation, or even just be a more experienced person to talk to, because you've got guys that are 19, 20-year-old kids who've moved down to Melbourne from wherever they are, and all of a sudden their wage has been cut in half and they've still got to fork out rent, and they're dealing with challenges that they've only just moved out of home and they've never really ever had to think about. So there's also those sorts of aspects going on, as opposed to just the training aspect where you've got to try and keep yourself motivated to keep fit and ready to play again, and you don't even know when that is. So from a leadership perspective, that's definitely something that I learned last year from taking on the captaincy over years.
Now, speaking of leadership, you, despite the lack of games, still actually did lead the club into a victory just recently.
Yeah.
How did you get dobbed into the dice footy?
That's just when Telstra jumped on board. What's this year, 2020? At the end of 2018, a few blokes from the club got picked where they would have to do a few little things for Telstra through the new deal that they'd done with the AFL. So that's how I got onto that one. But I was round one, so I think I know Gresh is another fella that you might see in round two if they're going to be round two. But yeah, that was sort of something.
You got the best victory. It's always the best beat, Carl. So
I know, and it was interesting because we couldn't lose after the third quarter. The game was sewn up. I didn't even have to roll.
Yeah.
But it was just it was classic honourable loss.
Seb, it's been terrific to have you with us. Obviously, you've developed into a very, very good footballer for our football club over the last few years, and obviously a leader that had to captain the club through some adversity last year. And obviously, adversity, I think, sums up the situation for everybody at the moment.
Yeah.
But we know we're in safe hands with you guys, and all the very best for when it does return. Hopefully, that's sooner rather than later, and we can obviously get right behind you when that does occur. But good luck, and thanks for joining us.
No worries, guys. Thanks for having me on, and good to see you guys all staying safe. I hope your families are well.